Welcome to the January 18th edition of the PFF Forecast. It is the divisional round. We have a new intro to the podcast. It's a great day. As Ian Hart says, great day to be great. We have 4 fantastic matchups. We paid Seth Galina extra, so he's going to actually break down all 4. We have Judah Fortgang. Judah Fortgang almost made 100K on same game parlays. He won one. He got Daniel Jones on another. He's going to talk us through how to win one this week. I'm juiced up. I'm placing one. It's going to be 400 to 1 odds. I can't wait to hit it. And we're going to close out with locks of the week with our main man, Arjun. Let's rock. Seth, it's that time of the year where everyone has a take on one underdog that's going to win. Everyone does. Last week, it was the Giants. Most people were right. This week, I'm very interested. It feels like the Cowboys. We brought you in because you're a contrarian. Are you ready?
I'm just going to say something. I thought when you started that sentence, it's that time of the year. I thought we were going right into an ad read. That's the perfect start for an ad read. Perfect time of the year to shave your balls. Shave your balls. It's Christmas time, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a new year, new me.
Yeah.
Is there a perfect time of the year for that, or
all times of the year
for that? Or what do we do at this point? Let's get this back on the tracks by letting people know, members of the printing press, if this is for some reason your first time joining the podcast, or if it's your 100th, we appreciate you listening. Go join the printing press Discord so that you can get, we moved a player prop, Brad pointed out, like eight yards. We talked about it on the Sunday night pod, and immediately when the line came up in the Discord, someone dropped it in, everyone hopped on, and it's now a full 8 yards different. So get in there. It's a lot of fun. This is the right time to do it during the playoffs. And it'll be a good time. The link will be posted in the description. Okay, let's start we'll go in chronological order here. That means we're going to start with Jaguars Chiefs. This is actually a rematch from earlier in the season. The Chiefs won rather handily. It actually wasn't even as close as the final score, which was Chiefs 27 and Jaguars 17, which meant that they just barely covered. It was a 9.5 point spread at close, but it really wasn't that close if you watch the game. Patrick Mahomes over 90 PFF grade. Actually, Trevor Lawrence graded well in that game. This again being played in Kansas City. The spread in this game 8.5. So the market has enjoyed or liked what the Jaguars are doing. I don't think that's surprising given how good Trevor Lawrence has been over the last 10 weeks or so. So the question is this, Seth. I have a little feeling that you think the Jaguars can pull off this upset. How?
I'll start by saying I'm so biased. I love this Jaguars team in a way that I shouldn't. Just love everything about them. And my other bias is and I hate saying this because it's going to show the world how stupid I am, but I've been kind of waiting for the collapse, the unraveling of the Kansas City Chiefs. And why I'm doing that, I have no idea, because this is clearly one of the best teams, one of the best dynasties we've seen in a long time. And, they played they were like a mid-tier team in the middle of last season, and then they've just kind of figured themselves out, and they're a great team again. So I don't know why I keep doing this. However, certainly like the Jags plus 9.5. I think that's where the line is right now. I think this could be the upset. I think my matchup for this week is Patrick Mahomes versus the players on the other side of the ball who are paid to tackle him. Because this is always the issue when you play against Patrick Mahomes is, can you get him to the ground? He is such an incredible player at finding space in the pocket, finding space kind of outside the pocket, and then obviously being able to make plays down the field. The Jaguars had 19 individual pressures versus Mahomes in that, I think it's a week 12 matchup. They got him to the ground 0 times. 0 sacks. They had 10% of those were unblocked pressures in the way that we chart them. They got him to the ground 0 times. Like they got to get like. I know it's easier said than done. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes here, but they have to get him to the ground. So, your matchups are really Josh Allen, defensive end, Arden Key, designated pass rushers, had a really good season, and rookie Travon Walker just like getting after him and getting him to the ground. Again, we say this every week about Patrick Mahomes, and every week he comes out and he does some magic. So, but that is the key here for the Jags defense.
Yeah, so just to pile on a little further, just for insight for some folks, we do a lot of radio hits at PFF across the country. I actually got brought on once this year, and they said, your coworker Seth's bold prediction was the Chiefs were going to miss the playoffs. They brought that up like unprovoked. They just decided to ask me my thoughts on that. But anyway, I just figured I had to slide that in there. So anywho, my follow-up question to you there is, in this first matchup, Mahomes was lights out between the numbers against the Jaguars. 15-21 for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really was really productive over the middle. How can and the Chargers as well last week? A lot of Evan Ingram, a lot of Gerald Everett, a lot of Donald Parham. How can the Jaguars shore things up over the middle of the field?
Look, the thing is, the issue when you play the Chiefs is, and we talked about this for now like 2 off seasons, is like, if you want to put bodies down in the middle of the field and play a cover 3 where you're going to have 4 underneath defenders, you're going to get exposed down the sideline. You're going to get exposed down the field because Mahomes will beat you that way. So teams are saying, hey, we're going to play a lot of quarters. We're going to play this year. They're seeing a lot of cover 1, man-to-man coverage. So you can get the middle of the field because you just have less underneath defenders. Or if you're in man, you can just win your slant, win a route like that, and you can access the middle of the field. So that's kind of the issue. So now they did not play a lot of cover 3 against the Chiefs in their first matchup. Will they, that if they do, it'll mitigate some middle of the field issues. But of course, you give them other issues. So that would be the way you could do it. The question is, do they want to do that and give up other areas of the field?
It's interesting. The matchups that you can immediately draw from that are, okay, well, Travis Kelce operates on the middle of the field. The Jacksonville Jaguars, it's interesting. The 2 worst units in the NFL at covering tight ends are playing this weekend. So I guess that tells you a couple things. One is there's some opportunity. And the second is that it doesn't matter if you can cover tight ends or not. You can still make it to the divisional round. But the Jaguars PFF grade when covering tight ends is 38.1. That's dead last in the NFL. Travis Kelce, 91.1 PFF grade, is dead first in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, 92.4 passing grade when targeting the either inline or slot targets. That's the best in the NFL. The Jaguars defense covering those targets is 31st in the NFL. So like it all lines up. And I just hesitate to think that they're going to be able to switch their scheme up for this, on a dime and kind of make things happen. Is that something, just real quick, I know we're not trying to add more questions here, but Seth, is that something that is hard for a team to do, or is it something that you'd expect the Jaguars to be able to do in this game?
Well, and the one thing I'll add about the Jaguars is like the linebackers haven't played very well this year. Like that also doesn't, you can't just change your whole crew of linebackers and expect differences right here. And they're young players. We're obviously Muma and Lloyd, young players. So hopefully they grow in that role. But yeah, it's tough because you kind of, at this point of the season, you try to be who you are. You try and like deal with the issues that the offense is going to present to you within your scheme at a micro level. And you'll say, okay, when they're in this formation, we can check to this. We can be alert for certain things and then, play tighter to routes in one sense before, if I'm in zone, maybe I'll play tighter to a slant before I have to get outside or something like that. So you can make these micro adjustments. I don't think it's tough. And maybe this is the wrong thing, but I'm going to say it's tough for teams to just change their identity this late in the season. Or honestly, like even early in the season, we see it. Teams are kind of who they are. Now, should they be doing that more? That's a whole other discussion. But expect the Jags to kind of be who they are this week and just try and limit those plays over the middle of the field, tackling well and all that stuff.
All right, it's time to play some bets here. I'll start with you, Brad. What's your favorite bet in this game?
Yep. So because the spread is now bet down to 8.5, I am teasing the Chiefs so you can get it to 2.5, get it through 7 and through 3. And I'm going to do that with the Philadelphia Eagles, which are 7.5. So tease the Chiefs down to 2.5, tease the Eagles down to 1.5. That is how I'm playing this Chiefs Jaguars game.
I like where your head is at. There are a couple of props that I like in this game. Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns is minus. It's now minus like 108, minus 110. You could have gotten it, I think, at plus money to start, but for all the reasons that we just mentioned, like that one quite a bit. You could pair it with some Kelsey overs as well. The other thing that I'm interested in, and these aren't out yet, but what sack props are like. Chris Jones has a massive advantage against that interior line, and he's been dynamite. Had 1.5 sacks in their first matchup. So those are a couple of angles that I'm looking at. It's supposed to be light snow and really cold. I could see that driving down Trevor Lawrence's passing yardage props. I actually saw it 249.9 or 249.5. So that'd be another place I'd look. Seth, what are you thinking?
I'll add a little bit of color to your Chris Jones point. I thought the guard, Brandon Scherf, played passable against him in the first game. Now, it's Chris Jones. He's going to make plays on you for sure. The issue now is that Scherf is his body is just made of duct tape right now. He's just trying to get through it. He's going to play, but a lot of like lingering injuries. So that's going to be a tough matchup for him. And then my pick for for the bet for this game is Christian Kirk over 5.5 catches. You look at what the Jaguars did in the second half versus the Chargers. They were getting a lot of man coverage. They said, we're not going to stop running all the routes over the middle of the field. We're going to go outside. We're going to run these outbreaking routes to Christian Kirk. He is so good on these routes. He cooked Derwin James. He had a touchdown on one of them, had another play, had a bunch of catches in the second half. You look at the first game against the Chiefs. Chiefs came out and played a lot of cover 2 versus the Jaguars. And then the Jaguars were having some good opportunities. They weren't always completing them, but they had some good opportunities. So they said, you know what, screw it. We're going to play cover 1. We're going to play man coverage. And Christian Kirk outbreaking routes in the second half. I think he had 5 catches in the second half versus the Chiefs. So Christian Kirk over 5.5. I think they start the game trying to hit those out routes for Christian Kirk.
Before we move on, real quick,
Yeah.
George, I had to jump in here. DraftKings does have Chris Jones. It's not the great price. It's over 0.75 sacks, which means you need a full sack, is minus 105. So not even plus money on that. But yeah, that's where it is on DraftKings. I know, not great.
Suckers. Yeah, that's brutal. Okay, let's move to Giants-Eagles. In Philadelphia, these teams have played each other twice this year, of course, but twice in the last 5 weeks of the season. Week 14, both teams played their starters. The Eagles won by 26. Then in week 18, the Eagles played their starters. The Giants rested their starters. And of course, the Eagles only won by 6, not covering or coming close to covering a 16.5 point closing spread. Obviously, both teams playing their starters in this game. The Giants 7.5 point underdogs, total at 48. So, Seth, what an interesting game. Obviously, these teams have seen each other a couple of times. Much of the conversation has been about Jalen Hurts' shoulder. Now, none of us are doctors here, so like why we would sit here and prognosticate about that, I don't know. So what's something that we do know about these two teams that, from a matchup perspective that will help us kind of figure out which side to bet on?
Yeah, so I'm going to look at the other side and I'm going to say the matchup that is the most interesting to me is Daniel Jones versus routes that are actually covered versus concepts that are actually covered, because the Minnesota Vikings do not know how to cover a wide receiver. And it made Daniel Jones look very good. Now he's having a good season, no doubt, but I think we've kind of gone to the other side of things with Daniel Jones after last week, where he's all of a sudden they need to give him a 5-year contract and all that stuff. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what he can do versus a team that can actually cover routes, that has 2 really good corners, that has better zone coverage principles, I would say. This team, the Vikings team, was just all over the place and trying to match routes and everything like that. You're assuming the Eagles don't do that, and then we're set to say, okay, well, now let's see who the real Daniel Jones is. So that's where my head is at, and not quite sure it's going to look as good as it did a week ago against the Vikings.
Yeah, so George, you touched on, or you teased it earlier. I'll let you explain it more. But Dallas Goedert was the prop you were referring to for this game. Opened at 41.5. It's now 48.5 at most books. So we basically moved it like 18%, which is pretty hilarious. But
The press,
going back, yeah. So going back to those matchups, the first Giants game, there was Noah Dory Jackson against the Eagles, and AJ Brown went bananas. The second game, like you said, they rested most of their guys. Hurts didn't do a ton, but the first throw of the game was like a 40-yard deep ball to AJ Brown. The next play was a quick out slant that he hit him on, and they scored quickly and then kind of their foot off the gas. That said, though, I just think both teams are going to score in this matchup. I mean, Seth, you mentioned we probably got a little bit too far on Daniel Jones, but Brian Daboll, I think, is going to get guys open against this Eagles secondary. And the pass rush for the Eagles, obviously 70 sacks, all those things, but Josh Sweat did practice today, but I don't think he's still 100% healthy. And Evan Neal is kind of the squeaky wheel at right tackle for them right now. But I think if you have a less than 100% Josh Sweat, could be wrong here, but I think he'll be more over the right tackle, and Hassan Reddick is more over the left tackle. They mix and match a bunch. You get Brandon Graham, all those things. But nevertheless, I like the over 48 here. I just think both teams are going to be able to move the football and score. And they didn't really show their cards at all in Week 18, so it's kind of their second time playing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, look, I feel as though the Dallas Goedert, the Dallas Goedert prop just has to be bet no matter what. If you didn't get in there at 41.5, just ride with the squad no matter what. He is, I think, been underrated from a tight end perspective. I mean, everyone talks about obviously Kelsey, Kittle gets some love here and there. You have Waller had a nice little time there, but Dallas Goedert has been really good. Fourth highest graded tight end. The Giants coverage grade versus tight ends is 38.8. That is the second worst. And of course, last week, one of the big printing press movement was around TJ Hawkinson. I actually bet him 7-1 to lead the game in receiving yards. He did 129 and 10 catches. So that's where I'm, continuing to head, but I do think there's some interesting, I like the teaser that you brought up, Brad. Is certainly one to kind of watch and probably bet, because you never know what'll happen with some of these lines. Like you could see the Eagles moving out to something that is unteasable. Seth, where's your head at in terms of the bet here?
I'm going to stick on the Giants offense and say Isaiah Hodgins. Now, I don't have the number. Me and Brad were trying to find it before of catches. I'll say probably around 4.5. That seems about right for him. If it's 3.5, I love the over. Even at 4.5, I really like the over. He's the guy who's become their option route runner, their short option route runner. You saw it time and time again against the Vikings. They trust him to win that matchup. It's an option route. They trust him to make the right read. And Daniel Jones is finding him. You also get your slants, your quick outs, your other hitches. So I think that he has become this really interesting figure for Daniel Jones to kind of get the ball out too quickly. So I like Isaiah Hodgins over catches.
His receiving yardage prop is 44.5. Do you like that at all?
That to me is a little trickier, just because you're talking about 6-yard hitches that get tackled on the spot. So, yes, there's some other plays that he'll be involved in down the field, of course. But if those plays are covered, then you're just talking about hopefully, he breaks a tackle somewhere on a quick route and gets another 10 yards. That's a little trickier.
Dallas Goedert over 100 yards is plus 680 on FanDuel. You can thank me later. Let's go to Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, Cincinnati and Buffalo. Somewhat of a rematch. We saw a couple of possessions worth of this game before Damar Hamlin went down. He will thankfully be, I think, in attendance for this game, right? He's doing remarkably well, which is fantastic. So able to play this game under much happier circumstances. What's interesting is this game is in Buffalo. Had Cincinnati won that game, this game would be in Cincinnati. It is -5. It has moved a little bit in the direction of Buffalo over the course of the last couple of days. It seems to be that is a reaction to the offensive line of the Bengals being really banged up with no Jonah Williams and no Alex Kappa. Ironically, that doesn't even put their worst offensive lineman on the field because he was already starting at right tackle. Total at 48. There should be some light snow, winds in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range, real feel around 24 degrees. And so for people wondering, why the total is below 50, those are some reasons why. This figures to be a close game, but the spread maybe kind of says that people think the Bills are going to kind of run away with this. Seth, where do you see? I mean, is it the offensive line, and do you see anything that the Bengals you think can have done that will be successful in mitigating that, or do you think there's another matchup that will decide this one?
Well, we'll talk about two sides of the ball here. I think with the Bengals offense, I like them better than you would think given their last two games where they really struggled to move the ball against the Ravens. I think the Ravens give them so much trouble. Mike McDonald did a really good job scheming up against them, rotating coverages late, really disguising what their intentions were pre-snap into post-snap. And so that just gave just so much trouble. And obviously the offensive line stuff it's never going to be easy. But I think they could have a better day against the Bills. Now, obviously we don't, we thought we were going to see this matchup a few weeks ago. We saw one drive, maybe 1.5 drives. They do score a touchdown. I know you don't want to extrapolate off of that, but this is a team that I think the Bengals could move the ball against. It's not a ferocious pass rush without Von Miller. It really just they've crumbled in that sense since Von Miller's injury. So I think, and I understand how bad the Bengals offensive line is going to be this week, but I think Burrow, quick passing, can get the ball out, take enough shots down the field when they get the one-on-ones. They always will. And if those, playmakers on the outside, catch a couple of those balls, which again, they always do, I think they actually should be able to move the football quite a bit. And the other side of the thing is you look at Josh Allen last week against the Dolphins, and now the Dolphins see Josh Allen all the time. Their defense coordinator, Josh Boyer, I guess has game planned for him, I would say 9 times now. So 3 seasons plus a playoff game. So they're probably just at their wits' end of what they're trying to do with against him. But what was really rough to watch was all the guys who were just getting one-on-one shots down the field, over the middle of the field, because the safeties were playing short. They were blitzing, so you got the cover 0 looks. You got a lot of cover 1 looks where the safety was really low and trying to nail down on crossing routes. Got a lot of bracket looks where both safeties were low and double teaming Diggs and another player, which allowed routes over the top. That's not what the Bengals are going to do. The Bengals are going to try and force Josh Allen to beat them over and over again with shorter passes. So it won't look like it's fun to watch Josh Allen versus a defense like the Dolphins because he's one of the few quarterbacks who can make a chaotic game look even more chaotic in a good way. But I think the Bengals would keep him in check a little better than the Dolphins were able to do. So for me, the matchup is the Bengals just playing their safeties deep, not getting beat deep.
Yeah, obviously the storyline is going to be the Bengals offensive line, but for me too, the interior for the Bills outside of center Mitch Morse has serious issues. Roger Saffold and Ryan Bates are not very good. DJ Reader has been really, really good this season. There's a lot of, interesting things going on here too with in the Bills run the ball. I know they have very high yards per carry, which is probably because of light box counts and other factors, but the Bengals haven't been able to run the ball for about a month. So I took the Bills minus 3.5. It's now 5.5. I know George and Arjun vehemently disagreed with me on that one, but my thought here is, you mentioned that they're going to have to probably hit some deep shots against the Bills secondary that hasn't been great, and they can't generate a pass rush. I'm looking at longest reception props for T. Higgins. I can't find anything yet as of right now. His total is 66.5. So I would guess we'll get something, 21.5 to 24.5 type range for him. And I think they'll hit one of those deep balls to T. Higgins.
So I have a couple of bets that I like. My first question though to you, Seth, is do you expect, so Trey White has not graded well. He's coming back from injury, just a 62.7 PFF grade. Jackson on the other side is banged up and has been worse. Do you think that Trey White is playing better than his grade of late? / do you think that he'll travel with Chase? And does that expose Higgins as an opportunity? Because I think about those quick throws that could go to the house. My immediate thought is Jamar Chase. That's his game. But how do you see that shaking out from a game plan perspective?
Yeah, Trey just hasn't been very good this season. And I'd have to brush up a little bit on my knowledge of the Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier defense, but I do not believe they travel.
No,
So
I don't think they do. I don't
think they do at all. So I think you'll get him on one side of the field for the whole game.
Okay, so I like Jamar Chase. I like him a lot. I liked him last week. He had like 7 catches in the first 17 minutes of the game. It was a good week. But there's actually a wide receiver cornerback matchup here that's even more advantageous. Eli Apple got shaken into a netherworld by, was it Darius Robinson?
DeMarcus Robinson.
DeMarcus Robinson. Okay. My apologies to DeMarcus Robinson, former Chief, as Eric would say. Like Eli Apple was in a club dancing after that route. Stephon Diggs, there might not be a bigger mismatch than Stephon Diggs running a route against Eli Apple. So like that to me is just, it may only happen once. If the Bengals are smart, they're going to do everything they can to avoid that happening. But I don't know how that's the case because Kenny Taylor-Britt on the other side has been equally miserable. So I love Diggs here in a game that, look, Diggs is a passionate player. He is the guy that you expect to show up as a result of this being a little bit more of an emotional game because of all that transpired the last time that these guys played. Remember that Stephon Diggs actually went to the hospital after DeMar Hamlin went there. So Diggs right now is over 80.5 receiving yards, is tempting. I don't actually see on FanDuel the receptions prop. I would expect it to be 6.5. And I will roll with the over there on my main man, Stephon Diggs. What are you thinking, Seth?
I just kind of like what I was saying with the Bengals offense, Bengal team total. And I think Brad told me he saw it at 21.5 at FanDuel. Probably I'm willing to go up to like 23.5. I just think this is a matchup that looks good for them on paper. Feeling less about that because of the offensive line issues. Like if you would have told me this before the Ravens game, okay, they're going to get through the Ravens, the big favorites, and they're going to go play the Bills, and Jonah Williams is going to be fine. Jonah Williams looked not very good either way against the Ravens, but I think it would have felt better. But I do think this is a good matchup for them, so I'll take Bengals over 21.5.
The Sunday night game. This game is a wet dream for a lot of people, especially if you're from Dallas or San Francisco. And as a result, tickets are costing like $10K to go to this game. Really, the least surprising thing that I've heard is that these tickets are astronomically high. In San Francisco, Dallas comes in. You would have thought they won the Super Bowl based on the coverage they're getting. It turns out, no. In fact, they just played Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich, which makes anyone look pretty good. They are 3.5-point underdogs to the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. The Brock Purdy-led San Francisco 49ers, who, as I check my notes here, have scored in their games since Brock Purdy took over 33, 35, 21, 37, 37, 38, and 41 points. They cannot be stopped, Seth. What's the matchup in this game that you're most excited to watch?
Well, I'll go both sides of the ball. You talk about Brock Purdy, just some thoughts on Brock Purdy. I do really believe that this is all Kyle Shanahan plus supporting cast led. But what I will say about Purdy is what he gives them that Jimmy Garoppolo does not give them is the ability to throw the ball down the field, especially down the sideline. That's just not something that Jimmy Garoppolo would ever do. Give his players a chance in one-on-one situations. And then I think probably the most important thing is his mobility, his escapability in the pocket. I'm not saying he's not like he's not Michael Vick, but he can move around. You saw him make some plays. He's finding the check down. Like even that, being able to escape a sack, find a check down to a guy like McCaffrey, to a guy like Deebo Samuel. Obviously, this is such an incredible supporting cast that those plays end up going for positive yards. And the other side of the ball, the Cowboys need to find a way to deal with all these crossing routes, these deep crossing routes, deep overs that the 49ers are going to throw at them. An absolutely miserable job by the Seattle Seahawks last week, leaving their corners out to dry, kind of playing in a way to say, hey, we're going to leave it up to the corners. But these are tough routes, right? They're condensed formations, routes that run across the field, just really tough. So how do you deal with these crossing routes if you're the Cowboys? And the Cowboys are going to give them similar looks to the looks that the 49ers saw that the Seahawks were playing that led them to these deep crossing routes to Ayuk and Debo and really opened up the game for them. So how do you do that? Again, you can play it with the linebackers from bottom up with a thing we call a robot technique. You can play it from top down with the safeties, a thing we call nail technique. But you got to pick one, and you got to do it, or else they're going to hit these routes all day. So that, to me, is my number one matchup in how the Cowboys can deal with them.
And just real quick on that, Jaron Kearse, the safety, got hurt in that game, but said he's 100% going to play. So if they're going to do some, I'm already blanking, the opposite of robot, if they're going to pivot to the other direction, Jaron Kearse should be good to go. So, and Leighton Vander Esch had a nice pass breakup in the end zone. So my question for you, though, look, it's been a full year since this game happened, of course. They are different rosters, probably most notably no Amari Cooper for Dallas. But, look at last year's playoff game, infamously, the Cowboys sneaking the ball on with 5 seconds left and losing. Kind of where are we at now? What can Dallas do to move the ball more effectively this time around?
The one thing, and honestly, if Dallas moves the ball and wins this game, you can really go and look at last year's playoff game that they lost and say this is the turning point. And I think we actually talked about this on the podcast, if I am not mistaken, but it's a CeeDee Lamb alignment. They did not. You said Amari Cooper played that game, but I believe Michael Gallup did not play in the playoff game last year. One of the two didn't, right?
Oh, you're right.
So
Gallup's
one of the two outside receiver out, and the Cowboys said, okay, we don't have this outside receiver, Gallup, who's I think all three of us think is a really good player. We're going to move CeeDee Lamb outside, and this was just, and it makes sense. Because, at that time, the corners for San Francisco really were not their strength. Their strength was over the middle of the field, matching routes with those linebackers, those safeties. It just didn't work. I think CeeDee Lamb played all but 4 snaps in the slot that day. This year, he just doesn't get a lot of snaps outside. They've mixed it up a lot more. I think you'll see them say, okay, he's our best player. How do we get him involved? Yes, the 49ers are still really good inside, but we can get him involved. He can be the one that unlocks this 49ers defense. That, to me, would be, if we see that, they'll have learned from their mistake last season.
That's interesting. The Kyle Shanahan, Dan Quinn matchup is the one that I just think is so interesting, because Dan Quinn had the benefit of matching up against Byron Leftwich. So, I mean, this is going from, fighting a statue made of feathers to Thor. Like, it is, I came up with that on the spot, by the way. So you're welcome.
So good.
It's so good. So good. I don't know. I was trying to come up with something, but it's just a massive, massive difference. And, kind of all the way back to, Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator, and he has a lot of talent on his team, but kind of the way that he thinks about defense is one that is, we want to react fast. We want to, we're going to play the things that we play, and we want to be able to move quickly. And I just think that is in Kyle Shanahan's wheelhouse, because Kyle Shanahan is so smart that he is going to know how those guys are going to react. And he's got, 5 playmakers that are all just impossible to stop, between Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey, Ayuk, and even Jawan Jennings has been good. So, that offensive line as well at his disposal, I think, is going to be really interesting. For that reason, actually, the bet that I really like in this game is over. So it's 57, degrees, just some scattered clouds, 46 points. I don't know if this is just distrust of BCB, our guy, or if this is thinking that the Cowboys kind of come back to earth, which, I think they will. But if the Cowboys are playing from behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. CeeDee Lamb is good. Dak Prescott is good. They'll put up enough points to get over 46. I like that. I also like Niners plus 3.5 or minus 3.5. Brad, what about you?
Yeah. So, look, we obviously talked ourselves into the Bucks after trying to tell ourselves to not talk ourselves into the Bucks all year. But so I'm not going to fully take away from the Cowboys win, but that is probably the oldest and slowest team in the NFL, with significant injuries across, both units. I think in particular, without Shaq Barrett, Joe Tryon-Shake is a good young player, but they really had no edge pressure in that game. Or if they did, Dak could kind of just evade it, and it wasn't really a big problem. And now you're playing the 49ers, right? And then on the flip side, you mentioned, the Niners are first in EPA per play since Brock Purdy took over as a starter. They're the best offense in the NFL since Brock Purdy took over. So For me, I think the injuries to Jason Peters is probably not going to play in this game, which will lead to more shuffling. I guess Tyler Smith will go back to left tackle, Connor McGovern at left guard, and keep Tyron Smith at right tackle, which hasn't been super pretty. I'm not really sure why you wouldn't put him back at left tackle, but I'm not the coach. But nevertheless, I think the Niners -3.5. I think it is an overreaction to, they beat Tom Brady, they beat the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers stink. And Tom Brady is good, but the team was just not good anymore. I think the Niners -3.5 is my favorite play of the weekend.
Wow. Lock of the week preview. Seth, what about you?
All right, let's have some fun here.
Yes.
We're going. First touchdown will be scored under 6 minutes, and it'll be the 49ers. And you want to go crazy, you can maybe add like a Christian McCaffrey first touchdown scorer prop in there. Like, it's the 49ers. We know what they're about. First 15 plays of the game, they are lights out. Since Brock Purdy came in, they're fourth in EPA per play, first 15 plays of the game. They're great on the first play of each drive. Dallas is middle of the pack on defense, first 15 plays. Dallas on defense, Dallas offense is middle of the pack, first 15 plays since Dak came back. So even if Dallas gets the ball first, you can get a 3-and-out, just like what happened on Monday night. Let's have some fun. 49ers first touchdown in the game under 6 minutes.
So, I mean, they either need to take the opening kickoff or, another thing that kind of works in your favor there is the Niners defense, right? And so if the Cowboys start with the ball, you've got a nice opportunity to maybe get a 3-and-out or, maybe one first down and still have an opportunity to score there. So there's kind of two ways to win. What odds are you getting on that?
I looked at it. It was about like, sorry, this is my translation here, like a multiplier of 4.2, whatever that means.
I was told there'd be no math.
It was plus 320, I think is how that works, I believe.
Yeah, that's how it works. My pet peeve is people complaining about American odds. Seth, we need a divisional round, either a pet peeve or a patented Seth Galina soft spot. Which one will it be this week?
I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I've already taken up too much of your time. Pet peeve this week. When we talk about quarterbacks outside of the pocket, we always talk about, wow, he did a great job of keeping his eyes down the field. And that's what makes him this really good player out of structure, or, he can make a good play out of structure. I've been around quarterbacks for a long time. They all keep their eyes up when they leave the pocket. That's the easy thing. We all do that. The hard thing is throwing accurate footballs when you're on the move, when you're outside of structure. That is what makes guys like Patrick Mahomes this incredible talent, because he gets outside the pocket and he's still able to throw these super accurate footballs. So I can go on and on about this. I won't, but that is my pet peeve of the week.
Seth slipped a "we" in there. He's like, us quarterbacks, when we all keep our eyes downfield.
Unlike Patrick Mahomes, I'm very inaccurate when I get outside the pocket.
Seth Galina, full of peeves and an athlete. We appreciate you. Thanks for breaking down all of the games and for staying with us. We'll, of course, only have 2 next week. So how we'll spend 35 minutes on 2 games, I have no idea. I don't know if we'll be able to do it. Seth Galina at PFF_Seth. Go check him out. Love you, brother. Thank you.
See you guys.
We just talked about a bunch of games, and you should take all of that knowledge and use it somewhere. If you have not signed up for a sportsbook yet, or if you're looking for one that will give you the best experience, go to DraftKings Sportsbook. All of the NFL playoff action can be enjoyed uniquely well on DraftKings, the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Here's the deal. You use promo code PFF, and you can bet just $5 and then get $200 in free bets instantly, plus all new. And if you're an existing customer, you can take advantage of this as well. Get even bigger payouts with DraftKings step up same game parlays, boost your NFL winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. So you're thinking about some of the games that we just talked about, you want to parlay some of those things together. Maybe it's, Dallas Goddard, just climb the Dallas Goddard ladder and profit. You can do so on DraftKings Sportsbook. Download it right now. Use promo code PFF. $5 gives you $200 in free bets instantly. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions They do apply. You can see those in the show notes. Also, our friends at Western and Southern help you put that money that you win to good use, whether it's buying a home, getting life insurance, planning for a new child, or just saving your money and watching it grow. Maybe Judah is going to Western Southern to handle his parlay winnings. Go westernsouthern.com/PFF. They'll put a game plan together to help you maximize your future. And last but not least, our friends at Underdog, go check them out. It's the best way to enjoy fantasy football, and you can do so without having to deal with the season-long steps. You can play weekly and playoff-long contests. Use promo code PFF and deposit up to $100 and get that doubled at Underdog Fantasy, the Underdog Fantasy app. It's super simple. It's a really easy way. And if you're in a state where you can't bet, it's a great place to go. Use promo code PFF and get in on the action today. All right. Judah, you've come on this podcast basically every week. You drop knowledge. We've talked about your ability to pick out a contrarian viewpoint and capitalize. This weekend was uniquely special, not just because of the win, okay, but more so because of the loss. All right, so let me give a quick recap for the viewers. I'm sitting at home. I've got the PFF printing press Discord up. I've got, live game view up. I've got Sportsbook up. And someone is like, dude, Judah is about to hit a big one. So you have a same game parlay. I want to say 6 or 7 legs. It is a giant 4.
Just 4.
Just 4. Okay. Just 4. And it is basically a Giants viewpoint, right? And you've got the Giants and they're winning, and it looks like everything is going to hit. One of your legs is Daniel Jones over 80 rushing yards. And of course, my guy takes a few knees at the end of the game and pushes that under. Okay. What odds did you have on that?
Ooh, I want to say it was 180 to 1.
I think that's right. 180 to 1. So you are buying a small yacht, and it just goes away with Daniel freaking Jones. So I want you to now tell us and tell the members of the printing press where your head was at, and then what the next 24 hours was like.
Okay. I mean, there's so much to get to here. Honestly, I was more upset about, I had a bet earlier in the day with like Skylar Thompson, and I needed 5 more yards from him. And just the way that game ended had me on such tilt, because it was like, okay, I'll get the first down on the 4th and 1. Then he'll throw for 5 yards. And at the very end, like, okay, I might get the ball back with 20 seconds left. If they stop the Bills on 3rd and 9 or whatever, he's going to get 5 garbage time passing yards. And I was like upsetting because it was so stupid, because it was like a 4th and 1 delay a game. For some reason, and this has happened to me before, obviously on a much smaller scale, I placed like a Joe Burrow rushing prop in like week 14, a live prop, and I lost it on knees. So in the back of my mind this entire time is like, I know I actually need to get to 83 yards because they're going to be knees involved. At the same time, I grew up a Giants fan. I actually hadn't really my fandom basically dwindled over the years. And for some reason, watching that game, maybe because I knew I was rooting for this Daniel Jones parlay, but I sniffed the first senses of fandom in like 6 years.
Look at that.
And I was just like in shock. I saw it coming, and I knew the knees were coming. And like Daniel Jones got a pitch. I think it was on the second to last drive, and I'm like, this is it. Like he's got to get like 7 or 8 yards here to keep me safe. And I like stood up when I saw the draw, and like he got like 1 yard, got the sneak, and I was just praying that like Minnesota would either end the game or just like give the ball back to the Giants with less than 40 seconds left just to get that one knee. It was devastating.
Okay, so the next day comes around.
Okay, so the next day comes around. I do 2 things. I build my usual kind of same game parlay. So unfortunately couldn't give this out on the forecast as I usually do, but I wrote it up for PFF, which is my main angle was that I thought that Dallas was going to win and they were going to win through the pass. So I kind of allocated most of my betting to the same bet I wrote up, which is Dak Prescott 250 and the Cowboys minus 5.5. It was plus 400. And I also decided to, allocate a portion of my betting unit, as I usually do, to building a bigger same game parlay. Generally, I like keep it to 2 or 3 outcomes at like 20 to 1. But I was like, you know what? After after last week, I think after yesterday, like I think I'm gonna increase it this time. And it was essentially like basically the same thesis as I wrote up, but just give it a couple more outcomes. So I took the Zeke under because I thought they were going to pass. I extended the Dak passing yards more, took a little T.Y. Hilton, but it was all revolving around the same thesis. And I was like, okay, like what are the chances this hits? Slim, but most of my betting money is going to 250 and -5.5, and that was a very strong conviction play that I had. Whatever, I'm watching the game. I see T.Y. Hilton gets a couple catches. I'm like, okay, that's done. I'm like, okay, Pollard's getting most of the work. Prescott's moving the ball well. And then like midway through the second quarter, I'm like, oh shit, like this game script is setting up perfectly. And at halftime, Dak had like 190, and I'm like, we're so live. And then, I usually I like don't get like irrational fears. I don't understand when people have that. I was so paranoid those last 5 minutes that like Zeke was going to get the ball. He's going to break off a 30-yard run. Yeah. Like somehow I'm going to lose this in some like insane way. And I was like, there's no way he's going to get back into the game. They're up by like 25. Sure enough, like Zeke steps on the field and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like there's no way this is going to happen. Thankfully, we came out the other side, and it's actually surreal to like win $50,000 sports betting. I will add for members of the press to add to the kind of drama of this all. In my tilt on the Daniel Jones night, I placed like I put like $50 on a like crazy like I think it was 350 to 1 on DraftKings. I didn't even remember I placed it. I just like did it right after. I came 5 Dak Prescott rushing yards short of hitting that one too for an additional $40,000. It was absolute madness.
Oh my god!
You're the toughest plus $50,000 weekend of anyone I've ever met.
It was whack. What could have been? Did you end up? So I saw you obviously were a little hesitant to to let people know you were on the verge, but it was Monday night, and you came into one of the Discord chats and were like, does anyone have Zeke rushing yards live? Like, so you were thinking of actually betting, hedging on that. Did you end up buying any Zeke?
I didn't, nothing was available. Okay. There was a huge middle available because like the Zeke props were at 27.5 and I needed under 50.5. So I was like, okay, at least I might get a middle, and I gotta hedge this. There's so much money on the line, but everything was locked. And I was just like asking every person I knew. And I was trying not to look at my phone because I was watching on a delay. Usually I'm not on a delay. And I knew like a bunch of people were going to text me like the results of the play, and I just kind of wanted to watch it as it was happening. But I'm very thankful I didn't get any, Zeke hedge down.
No Zeke hedges. I should just say that, there's a lot of people out there on Twitter that win in a very lucky fashion. You see their slips all over the place. But you do such a fantastic job of really putting thought and detail and a tremendous amount of work behind these. So does it surprise me? Absolutely not. Like that you had, one that hit and 2 more that almost hit. So, I mean, we are so appreciative of you coming on and hanging out with us and dropping some knowledge. But everyone out there should go and make sure they're following you at Throw the Damn Ball on Twitter, read all of your great content on PFF and the PFF app. Like you said, I mean, you write these up every single week. This is not like something that you've got to go, subscribe to a clandestine site to go find. You're spreading this knowledge. So this week, let's start with some alternative angles, my man.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna go with Joey B and the Bengals.
I thought so.
280.
I thought this is where he was heading.
Yep. And Cincinnati -2.5 plus 500. I want to actually start with the criticism that I know is coming and the thing that everyone's talking about, which is that the Cincinnati O-line's done, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Joe Burrow, when throwing before 2.5 seconds, generally we define as quick pressure, has the number 1 PFF grade by a large margin at 90.6. I think the next one is 85. He's averaging like 0.12 EPA per play. And I will note this is exactly what the Bengals did last week. They ran 82% of their plays. Granted, they struggled against the Ravens defense, but they made an adjustment to basically operate only on quick passes to mitigate pressure. Bills are not exactly good at defending these sorts of plays. This was actually an angle he talked about in the Cowboys Bucks game last week, which is that the Bucks really were going to struggle, I thought, against the Cowboys defense in these quick situations because the Cowboys had the best EPA per play against those spots. I think it's kind of the opposite here, which is that the Bengals they're adjustable to the game plan. They're going to throw quick passes. I'm not sure the Bills are going to be able to stop that. Okay, that's the kind of offensive line part aside. We're just looking at these two teams kind of from a fundamentals perspective. They're kind of like the same. If you want to look at EPA, drive quality, especially if you kind of filter, which I don't love to do always, but like with Jamar Chase back, these teams are basically the same. Like, sure, home field advantage. Maybe I'd have the Bills as small favorites, but I certainly wouldn't have this number at 5. The other part, so we know how the Bengals are going to play. They're passing about 10 to 15% over expectation every single week now for basically the past 8 games. They're going to throw. If they're going to have success, right? If we assume that the outcome of the Bengals winning, it's going to be through Joe Burrow. The Bills have been a kind of low-key bottom-tier pass defense basically since Von Miller went down. If the Bengals are going to win, it's going to happen through Joe Burrow. They're going to pass a ton. If they're going to keep up with Josh Allen, you're going to need Burrow passing yards. And I see at plus 500 at some serious value.
Brad, you're wearing your Bengals colors here.
But first I was going to ask, can I hold $1? But second, I was going to ask, an SGP with Bengals, alternate spread to minus odds, and then minus on the spread, and then Joey Burrow overs, probably some mix and unders because they can't run, and then I was going to throw in a Stephon Diggs touchdown if he just burns Eli Apple on a sluggo like our guy Demarcus Robinson did. So I think we're on the same page there. But just that was awesome to see, and I'm ready to tail this weekend.
So this is actually a really good question because so Ben Brown, our friend, member of the press, and team are building a simulation, and some of the members in our Discord are going to get to test it out. But thinking about the way to kind of present the tooling for people to use, right? And it sounds like your heuristic here, Judah, is anchoring on a thesis, pulling out like kind of an anchor bet. Okay, so if this happens, so if the Bengals win this game, take them minus 2.5. And then, what are the key drivers there? So let me put in Burrow, right? Let me put in, you're thinking about what are these things that are all going to be a little more correlated together if this one thing happens. What are the other ones that come to mind for you? We have Bengals minus 2.5, Joey B. Are you immediately looking at certain receivers, running back unders? Like, just take us through your thought process there.
Yeah. So in general, it's going to depend on the team. So as a general note on process, this week, not as much because the Bengals have so many different receivers and so many ways they can win, right? They can win through like Jamar Chase explosive plays. They can win through T. Higgins deep balls. They can win through multiple throws to, Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst. Like, they've been doing all of those things. This doesn't like strike me exactly as a kind of SGP type week where I can really build something out, but it's really to focus on this like one thesis, right? That doesn't take too much to go right, which is that like, Burrow, I think, is a good bet to get passing yards. I don't really know where the secondary options are going to come from. I don't know where those yards are going to come from. Right? Just to kind of illustrate the thought process, because I think that's what you're getting at. Like, I thought last week, right, with the Cowboys, it was going to all flow through the middle of the field. That's where Tampa's weak. It's going to go to Schultz, probably going to go to Lamb. I don't think that same angle kind of exists against the Bills and with the Bengals passing offense.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You're kind of trying to figure out, okay, if these couple things happen, which are the things that increase, which are the most likely kind of end paths to that, right? And so you kind of articulated 3, I guess. So you could place, all 3, right? And
sure.
Kind of see which ones happen. Like, I think, Brad will take the T. Higgins route. I will take the Jamar Chase route. And Judah, if you want to fill out a little Tyler Boyd, and that way we just pool our winnings. They call that a syndicate in the business, in case you guys are wondering. Been a member of a few of those, none of which traded Pokemon cards in exchange for winning, but only true members will get that joke. Let's move to some live action here. We've got teams that I think throughout the year we've talked about a lot from a live perspective. So where are some of the angles? Maybe you have one for each day, hopefully to keep me engaged. But where are you looking this week?
Yeah, I'll first start with a broad note. I wish I could have said this last week because it would have been extremely profitable. But generally, teams in the playoffs are going to have good offenses. That's kind of how the NFL operates in 2022. And as we said all season, that good offenses and volatility kind of go hand in hand, because for every score that a team has, like, the odds are going to move, and you want to have a good offense on the other side that can come back and trade points. And if you're trading points, there's going to be value in the market. So I would just say for any team that kind of gets out to a big lead, the offenses are capable of making comebacks. There's generally going to be value available. I think that's certainly true for all the games this week. But to go through each game, because we have to. There are only 4 games. That's the playoffs. We got to have our angles. I think the Jaguars coming back, even if it doesn't get out too far, is a pretty good angle. If they turn it over on the first drive, which is seemingly a commonality every week, or even if not, they've been much, much better off script than on. It's, I think, the 4th biggest discrepancy of any team. We know they can mount comebacks. We all watched the Chargers-Jaguars game. That's something I'll be looking for. Okay, Giants-Eagles. This a little bit less analytically based, although it does have its basis there, which is that my thesis on the Giants is that actually the receivers might be better than we think, and kind of the team's undergone a change. Yeah, it's bold. Whatever, receivers or scheme combo with receivers. I don't really care. If receivers are open, the receivers are open. But
hold on. Note, you did mention that your heartstrings had gone back to the Giants here. So huge asterisk on this. Okay.
Unclear if that was just because I was rooting for that Daniel Jones parlay. We're gonna find out on Saturday night. No, but even in PFF separation metrics, Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James especially, they grade out really high. Especially when you look at the fact that Dable is creating something we worked on this summer. It was perfectly covered plays. When we actually found this, that more so than defense, it's driven by offense. And that's kind of a combination of scheme, receiver talent, and then obviously the matchup a bit as well. But Giants were facing perfectly covered plays 20% of the time last week. I don't think that happens by accident. Yes, the Vikings have a bad defense, but it does point to kind of some ability, whether it's the scheme or the wide receivers, to get open. So what I want to see is basically the Giants' game plan last week was to throw on early downs no matter what. Right, that definitely benefited me with the Barkley under. But that was their game plan. And I think if they stick to that and they have success early, they're going to be able to pass the ball, because these receivers might actually be better than the market kind of is giving them credit for. In which case, I think there's definitely going to be value on the Giants spread. Okay, next we got what's the 3:00 game? I'm not even.
It's Bills-Bengals, baby.
Bills-Bengals is first. Honestly, whichever team jumps out to a lead, take the over on the passing props, under on the rushing props. I think the market has a tendency to kind of price in the league average here. It doesn't get into team tendencies, and both of these teams pass about 10 to 15% above expectation when holding a 7-point lead. Again, as I said earlier, also I would just trade volatility in this game. These are 2 great offenses. They can score at will. Nothing too special there, but it's ripe for live betting. And last, it's tough with Purdy, because anything you look at, he's going to be shining. But there's something about, I don't know if it's watching the film or just rookie quarterback, that there's a little bit of kind of uncertainty there. I want to see how he fares against the Dallas pass rush. And that's something I'm monitoring, which is, are they throwing kind of screens to mitigate that? Are they, even letting Purdy have long developing plays? And is the offensive line going to protect them? That's something I'm looking for. It's more so kind of to see how Purdy's going to play. I think we know what the Dallas game plan is going to be, which is they're going to try and run the ball. Probably won't have success against the Niners front, but they're unafraid to pass. I think they'll have moderate success. The question is Brock Purdy the quarterback who's going to be, top 2 in EPA? I don't care how good he is. I want to know how he's producing. He's been producing at an elite clip ever since he started. I want to see if the pass rush of the Cowboys can kind of slow him down at all.
BCB. Do you have that tattoo yet, Brad?
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm going next week.
Hopefully you get some good illustration, around
chicken,
that,
on the
I feel like as a Niner fan, that's gotta be yours.
I'm waiting for the Super Bowl. There's some good tattoo artists in the Phoenix, Glendale area.
Sure there are.
So yeah, just a big portrait on the left butt cheek, I think, is what we're looking for. I can't wait. It's going to be great. If it's freaking Mahomes Purdy, I can't go through another one of those. That's just, I was there for
Purdy would hit Emmanuel Sanders deep. He would complete that pass.
What a terrible problem to have.
Bring that up.
I know. Well, and the other thing is Ayuk would die
Life.
for that shit.
Yeah.
That's important. Judah, this is a blast. Hopefully, we all hit a same game parlay this week and enjoy it. But yeah, thank you for dropping some knowledge. Good luck this week, though. You don't really need it. Maybe you spread it around a little bit. But congratulations again. Could not have happened to a more deserving human being. We will see you again next week, brother. Thanks for hanging out.
Yep.
All right. It is that time. It is divisional locks of the week. Arjun, you were patient. We had to hear Judah's entire story about he told us about the both not hitting the same game parlay on Sunday and then obviously hitting the one on Monday. And it's now time for locks of the week. How many same game parlays are you going to play this week, by the way, after that? After that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to like try to replicate what Judah does because that was, again, like that's a very tough thing to replicate. Definitely something to keep in mind going into like next year. Obviously, those type of things, the books aren't pricing in, and when Judah hits something like that, obviously you're going to see a lot of people try to replicate that. So I think you have to pick and choose your spots. There are some juicy spots definitely to target this week that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in same game parlays are a thing that books want people to place more of. By and large, they are really high margin. 3 to 4x what a normal spread bet would be for the books. But Judah hasn't. A lot of those reasons are because people have no idea what they're doing. They're just willy nilly. I mean, it's really hard to understand. They're just kind of throwing shit out there. But I'd be interested, to see if Judah gets any kind of limit.
I was thinking the same thing.
I don't know if they have that intelligent of a system, to pick up on kind of those sorts of theoretical plays, but we'll see. All right. We had an up and down week for locks of the week. We started off a little cold, got incredibly unlucky on Saturday with CMC finishing 1 carry short, just complete bullshit. And then Keenan Allen getting like 150 targets and getting 3 of them batted at the line of scrimmage. just absurd. Bounced back on Sunday in a very strong way. And then CeeDee Lamb came close, but did not end up delivering on Sunday or on Monday, I should say. So 4 games to go. Arjun, we'll start with you. What's your first bet?
Yeah, so this is one I liked. On Sunday. It's kind of moved against me, but I still don't understand. It is the Bengals plus 5.5. So I think it is 5.5 on a couple books. I see 5.5 on FanDuel, on Caesars, WinBet. So I just I don't understand really like the logic for the Bills. Like, again, like both teams had not that great games in wildcard weekend. But I think like the Bengals O-line struggles are kind of like being overblown. We saw the same Bengals team without an offensive line, like I would say a worse offensive line last year, go to the Super Bowl. And the thing that people I don't think are realizing is like you can overcome an offensive line when you have an elite receiving core, and not only an elite receiving core that can generate explosive plays with the snap of a finger. Now, the Bengals explosive play rate this year has been down compared to last year. That's because teams have more film on the Bengals, teams have more data on them, but that Jamar Chase can turn a 6-yard hitch into a 60-yard touchdown. And I've said this for weeks. I think the Bills pass secondary is a little bit overrated. Trey White, a lot of his stats are a little bit down compared to years prior. This is something that one of our graphic designers, Andrew Russell, talked about on Twitter. With Von Miller, the Bills ranked 4th in pressure rate when only rushing 4 pass rushers or less. Without him, that's dropped to 27th, and it's about like a 10% decrease in pressure rate. So you can blitz the Bengals because you're not going to cover T. Higgins and Jamar Chase one-on-one. So I don't necessarily see a huge advantage for the Bills defense there. And on the other side of the ball, I think the Bengals defense is one of the most opportunistic defenses in the NFL. Josh Allen, 3 turnover worthy plays last week. I'm assuming he's going to get at least 1 or 2 in this week. And I think the Bengals defense will take advantage of it. And this is a crazy stat. In all 5 of Burrow's playoff games, his defense has forced a second half turnover. And in all of the wins, a turnover has led directly to a win. If you think about every interception that's occurred in the second half of the wins, it's been because of a turnover. So I think the Bengals defense can take advantage of what I like to call a Josh Allen bozo moment.
Oh, this Arjun, don't go back. It's because Joey Burrow is just the most clutch player of all time, right? That's what you've been telling the people on Twitter all week long, right? Now the defense has nothing to do with it. No. So my favorite bet, jump in. I mentioned it earlier. I kind of already talked through the numbers, but I guess one other angle. So it's Chiefs teaser with the Eagles. So Chiefs down to 2.5, Eagles down to 1.5 on a 6-point teaser. I think one last thing to mention too. The Jaguars played a do-or-die divisional game that they arguably should have lost to the Tennessee Titans. They had to play a full 60 minutes in that game. They do get the win against a physical Titans team with a defensive touchdown. You then have a 27-0 deficit, so you're again playing balls to the wall for 60 minutes of that game. The Chiefs have been sitting in Kansas City, hanging out, getting healthy, getting prepared. Massive mismatch for their best player, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. Basically, their two best players have their two best mismatches in this game. So that's just, they're going to win this game. And then, with the Eagles as well, I like them down to 1.5.
The Zach Tantillo approved teaser. My first bet is also going. I'm going to get to the props here in a second, but I'm going to start with Niners, Cowboys. The best offense remaining has the lowest total in this wild card weekend. The 49ers, of course, I'm talking about, with Brock Purdy. They're averaging 35 points a game with Brock Purdy. It's ridiculous. The only game that they've scored under 30 points was a lone game in Seattle against the Seahawks at the end of the regular season. Otherwise, they have been above 30 the entire freaking time. And, I don't think that Dak Prescott is going to replicate what he did against Tampa Bay. But if they are down big, they're going to have to throw the ball. And, I'm fairly confident they can put up a few points. So over 46, it's going to be 57, some broken clouds. The rumors of the hellscape that was going to be the 49ers weather report last week, dramatically overblown. So yes, I like over 46 in Cowboys Niners. Arjun, where are you going next?
Yeah, no, I love that play also. I'm going to go to a prop now. So I'm going to start off with Christian Kirk over 5.5 receptions. We're going back to another slot receiver receptions. I hope it doesn't burn me this time. Christian Kirk in the Jags game versus the Chargers, he did go over this reception total. He had, let me just double check this real quick. He had 8 catches on 12 targets. In their last matchup, Chiefs versus Jags, he also had 12 targets and he had 9 catches. The Chiefs on the year, including the playoffs, have allowed the second most receptions to slot receivers. So players who lined up in the slot, 144 receptions allowed to slot people who lined up in the slot. Christian Kirk is the guy I think who will be targeted predictably when the Jags go down as they normally do to start a game. And I think if the Jags are playing catch up, he can easily go over this reception total. So Christian Kirk over 5.5 receptions.
Well, you scared me a little bit because I'm going back to the well with the same thing. Seth mentioned it earlier that in the CeeDee Lamb versus the 49ers last year, they tried to play him out wide because Michael Gallup had gotten hurt. It's just not really his bread and butter. It didn't go too well in that game. And then for the Niners, they've been playing like a little bit of Jimmy Ward in the slot. They lost K'Wan Williams to the Denver Broncos this offseason. If you tried to find a weakness on this defense, good luck to you first, but it probably is like in the slot. They have Travarius Ward, who, is solid on the outside, and they've managed to a degree. So the receptions prop is not out there yet, but I also like the game script here. I think we also just lost that bet in part because of game script, because the Cowboys had to stop throwing so early because they were just blowing out the Bucs pretty much right out of the gate. So the Niners are going to score. We know they're going to score. I'm trusting our guy CeeDee Lamb once more on the receptions prop.
Our faith in CeeDee. So I have to mention this. Dallas Goedert. It's 51.5. I realize that it's moved like 8 yards. And so you're choking away closing line value. So I don't know how we make this some sort of, it's got to be somewhere here because we've talked about it. Everyone's mentioned it now. I really like, I mentioned this a little earlier, Arjun, some of his alt numbers. So over 100 yards is basically 7-1. The TJ Hawkinson Memorial bet of the week. But the New York Giants are abysmal at covering tight ends. We saw that last week. And it's not like they're going to come into this game and be like, hey guys, we just got to stop Dallas Goedert, because guess what? AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are on the outside. That has to be their focus, right? Like it's not as if they can come in here and focus on Dallas Goedert. And in a game where if Jalen Hurts, his shoulder is still not 100%, I would look for them to get the ball out quickly, and Dallas Goedert will be available and will be open. So I guess we can put it down there as like 51.5. I actually don't think that's a prohibitive number. It's not the best of it. I don't know if we can count the 41.5 that I think, Arjun, you got that with me as well earlier this week, but it bears mentioning because it's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it pays to be in the Discord. We were talking about that as soon as it dropped. Like, I think a lot of the people in the Discord were waiting on Goddard lines. And,
yes.
we've gotten some other good props in, like Travis Kelce over 76.5, which that's already
what
moved
is that now?
79.5 on DraftKings. The same thing with Dalton Schultz under 46.5. That's already like 42.5 on a bunch of books. But yeah, sorry, going back to my final lock, this is kind of correlated with George's overplay. I don't know if we want to double dip. Maybe we can just pick one of these. It is going to be Brock Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Now, would you believe me if I told you that since coming in for Jimmy Garoppolo, Purdy has thrown for 2 or more touchdowns in every single game, including the Dolphins game?
Seen it with my own eyes.
It is crazy. And I think, part of it is him being able to make a lot of plays off structure, that the throw to, I think it was Elijah Mitchell in the Seahawks game, like he rolled left, came all the way around right and found Mitchell in the flat. Like those are the type of plays that he makes that Jimmy Garoppolo can't. The 49ers from week 1 to the wildcard weekend have faced the least amount of perfectly covered plays on offense, which again, it's a Kyle Shanahan stat. He's been amazing this year. I don't typically care that the Dallas defense looked really good against the Bucs. I will bet on elite offenses over elite defenses, and that's kind of like your thesis, George. And I would rock with Purdy because the Bucs are giving us like almost like -110 odds, -115 for Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns, even though he's hit that in 7 straight games. So I am gonna roll with that one.
I wish I had like a button that I could press for certain sounds and catchphrases to come up. And the one that I would pull up is DJ Khaled. They don't believe in us. I am addicted to DJ Khaled, by the way, on like Instagram is one of the greatest follows on earth. He's now playing golf, and he's like, it's a journey that is worth watching. But before that, his favorite thing to say was that they didn't believe in us and God did. They don't believe in Brock Purdy. It's very clear, and it's ridiculous. God does. His name's Kyle Shanahan. Brad, your next bet.
Yeah, so I'm all out of bets, but just wanted to throw one more thing. We talked about it a bunch. The Giants, I didn't mention this earlier, are second worst at covering between the numbers, second worst EPA per drop back between the numbers, and their linebacker core of Jalen Smith and Jared Davis is our second lowest graded linebacker core. Just more, the Goddard thing is not because it's in by itself. There are a lot of reasons we're in love with that play this week.
I have one more. And so the Chiefs Jaguars game, the Chiefs are a significant favorite, 8.5, 9 in this game. However, in terms of the passing yards, Patrick Mahomes, who is the favorite, this is on FanDuel, his player prop is at 315.5. Trevor Lawrence is at 251.5. Trevor Lawrence played well in the prior game against the Chiefs. If they are down truly by about 10 points in this game, I mean, they're going to throw. They need to throw the ball here, and kind of correlated with that Christian Kirk angle. But 251.5 for a guy that is one of the 7 or 8 best quarterbacks in the league when losing is disrespectful, honestly, to Trevor Lawrence. So I'll throw that one out there as well. I don't know that I have any other props that I think bear mentioning for the lock of the week. We've talked a little bit about Stephon Diggs against Eli Apple, Jamar Chase against Tre'Davious White. But if you are looking for more player props, the best place to go find that, we will talk about them kind of for the next 3 days straight in the PFF Printing Press Discord. The link is in the description. Good place to hang out. A lot of knowledge being dropped there. Do we just put all of these on the locks? I mean, I guess you said, Arjun, that like Purdy and Niners over is kind of correlated, I guess.
Yeah, that would be the one where I think maybe we pick one of the two. Otherwise, I think all of them are also pretty good.
I would
I like
lean...
the Lawrence play a lot, by the way. Very good call. Great against man coverage, worse against disguising coverage, which I think was the problem against the Chargers early. The Chiefs play a lot of man, do not disguise nearly as much, and rotate single high versus two high as much as the Chargers do. So, good matchup.
It's disrespectful. I would say, Arjun, let's go with the over, just because of the number of ways. Like if Purdy does throw 2, they're probably going over. But if they could still go over with like 5 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That I agree. That would be my take. Okay, so let's try and recap here. I think I will get these all. So first one, we have Bengals plus 5.5. We have a teaser, the Kansas City Chiefs down to 2.5, the Philadelphia Eagles down to 1.5. We have the San Francisco 49ers over 46. We have what was the next one? Was it you, Brad, that had the next one?
Christian Kirk over 5.5 receptions.
Yes. Christian Kirk over 5.5 receptions. What do we want to do with Goddard? Do we want, I mean, you guys tell me, like, do you think we should like advise people to go over 51.5? Do we just like chalk it up to being early?
I think we got all the value there. I don't want to, just keep chasing it.
Yeah, inaugural lock. We're gonna grandfather it in, right? Like you can't get this number now, but you'll have to trust us there. And then is the last one T-Law?
T-Law over 251.5. I like that play a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Any that I'm missing?
We already had the Niners stuff, so I mentioned 3.5. But we had that in the article,
yes.
And we're on the over. But we could do it, but I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Niners play, but
it is a lot of Niners play. It's very heavily concentrated. We did put that out there. Did we get it at 4? I want to say early in the week.
It was 3.5. We put in the article.
That's right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we already have that one. So plenty of locks. Make sure that you go check out pff.com, where you can get all of the kind of up to the minute write-ups by this crew and others, Ben Brown obviously included. Jump in the Discord, make sure that you're up to date. Where are we at with Boston Scott, Arjun? I'm surprised you didn't.
Oh yeah. That has to be like our bonus lock. I forget. Yes. So for those who don't know, Boston Scott has scored a touchdown in all 8 of his games against the New York Giants. Now, I've already placed this bet and everything. The only word of caution is it is a playoff game. So, as a backup third or even a third string guy, he might not see as much run, but like it's Boston Scott, the Giants killer. Like I think at some trends you just have to keep betting and until it runs out. So, it's been profitable so far for me. So I'm seeing plus 390 on FanDuel. But that's kind of my shtick on that.
Mentioned it's in the Giants' heads now because Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, in his press conference got asked about it, maybe because Arjun keeps talking about it, and he said Boston Scott is not a Giants killer. He's in their head. He's deep in their
no. Oh no.
Yep.
That means that's a guaranteed lock then. It reminds me of so I think if you remember this, you're too young, Arjun, there's no doubt about it, but Brad, you might remember this. So when Ruben Patterson said he was the Kobe stopper.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. There's a really good clip going around of Kobe talking about that. And apparently he matched up with him all the time in practice when they were on the same team. And when he was a free agent, he was going around like telling teams that he would lock Kobe up. And Kobe was like, you just call me up, man. I'm happy to give you a good word. But now when I face you, I'm going to have to give you 50. So
yeah, 50 pieces incoming. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. That was, I think one of the better shows of the year, deservedly so for divisional weekend. Thank you so much for hanging out. We love you all. We will be back Sunday night live. We're going to guess the conference championship lines, talk about those, break those down, and get some early bets in before the lines move. So come hang out with us. Love you. Peace.